Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Broughton Daily. My name is James. I'm one of the vicars at Broughton Church, and it's great to welcome you here to our daily reflection. For those of you who are joining us maybe for the first time, as a church, we do this each day, Monday to Friday, but we'd love to let you know that because Friday is a bank holiday, we won't be doing a daily meditation then. So the opportunity we have is to pause in the middle of the day and to simply reflect a little bit on something that's come up for those of us in the church who are offering these thoughts. I've been thinking a little bit more about something that we looked at as a church a couple of Sundays ago. So we're in this series where on our Sunday gatherings, we're considering the prayer that Jesus taught his disciples. It's a model of prayer, it's a pattern of prayer, and it's a prayer itself. So it's Jesus teaching his disciples, giving them a gift in a way, a pattern of praying that we can copy and we can think about. And we've already gone through the first part, and we've been picking it apart a little bit, but sometimes on a Sunday there isn't enough time to go into as much depth as we would like. So if I show you here where we're going and where we've been, so this is the prayer in full, and so far we've looked at those first few lines. So our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And if you wanted to catch up with those talks, then please do either check out our website and the talks on there, www.broughtonchurch.org, or have a look on the Facebook page for the live streamed services there. But when I introduced this series, I was looking at those first couple of lines, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. And something that I didn't touch on, but something that I think is important for us as we grapple with who we believe God to be, is the very first line. We focused on our Father, the idea that Jesus is introducing us to a God who we can approach as a child approaching their father. But then it's our Father in heaven. And I don't know what the idea or the concept or the reality of heaven conjures up for you when you think about it. It's one of those things, because it's right at the beginning of the prayer, I find I can slide past it without giving it much attention. And there's a theologian called Tom Wright who gives a couple of thoughts on this. He says we can think of heaven in a few different ways. We can have this idea that there's a complete separation, and that's quite we would say, Platonic ideas based on the Greek philosopher Plato, and there's a separation between heaven and earth, and somehow heaven is this sort of perfect place. Plato would talk about the reality of the forms, this ideal space, and then earth is somehow detached and fallen and completely separate, and it gives rise to this deist idea that gods, or the gods in that ancient Greek idea, and it pervades our thinking now. Somehow God or the gods are distant and uninterested, and they play with the lives of mortals, and there's a detachment. And for us, that would mean, as humanity, a self-reliance. And you could go in the other direction, and you could say that there's no separation at all, that everything is together, that there's no character to God. It's rather that there's this pantheistic idea that God is all, or panentheism, which is God is within all. And if you want to look for the divine, you look within yourself, or within the reality as you experience it. And that's quite an Eastern philosophy and sense of religion. And again, it sort of exposes, to my mind, a minimal set of engagement, a minimal. It seems, again, in another way, very detached. That whatever God is in that sense is not interested personally in me, and that again forces me into a position of self-reliance. And I don't know about you, I have found myself at times to be very unreliable, And what I need to do is I need to look for someone or something outside of myself to give me some kind of waypoint, some kind of guidance, relate to me on a personal level. And so we then find within the pages of the Bible the idea that heaven and earth, there is a connection. It's sort of like an overlap in some sort of intricate and mysterious way. We see it in the stories of the Old Testament. We think of, people physically meeting, like Abraham physically meeting God and talking and arguing with him, and then we sort of have that encounter, say, with Moses and the burning bush, and there's something divine about that encounter that's sort of overlapping, and God and Moses are able to converse. And you look at the prophets, people speaking on behalf, hearing from God and speaking on behalf in the Old Testament, and then of course we have Jesus, who is the absolute connection between humanity and divinity. He is the place where heaven and earth meet. And when you look at the prayer that he taught his disciples, he's even asking us to model that in our prayer. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. There's an understanding that heaven's place will become, in due time, and with our prayers and with our actions, heaven can make its reality here and now. And that for me is a place where my prayers can be empowered, because I'm not just praying about myself, although I do. I'm not just praying about those that I know. Jesus gives us a model of prayer that requires us to pray for the very fabric and reality of heaven to be made present and visible and tangible now. And I don't know what sort of situation you're in at the moment, how you are currently responding to this COVID-19 lockdown, for example. There is so much about it that has limited us, and there is so much about it that, to my mind at least, I hope I don't experience when I fully am present in heaven. And it spurs me on to pray and to think and to ask for the reality of God's kingdom, his rule and reign in action, that heaven itself, that we get to taste that as we look to engage with one another and with the world around us. So I appreciate that's a slightly more philosophical musing, a philosophical reflection today, but I think there is something important about saying, when we're praying our Father in heaven, so we approach God as a child can approach a father, that intimacy, but recognise that there is a reality beyond us that God promises that will one day be fully realised, that we get to participate in bringing about now. And no, we can't be out there in the world doing it, but maybe we can be in our own situations and doing that. We consider, how do we speak in our family or in our household units? How do we relate to those around us, or through online media, or even if we're, maybe we're taking our walk in the day or our exercise, and we're able to treat others in a way that brings heaven to earth, and it represents our Father who is in heaven and wants to bring the reality of heaven on earth. So that is my encouragement to you today, on the basis of that, to consider even now when we are limited, how might we have the opportunity to bring the reality of heaven in our thoughts, in our words, and in our actions on earth. Perhaps we can pray together the prayer that Jesus taught his disciples. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Amen. So take care, everybody. I hope that you are staying safe and well. If there is anything that we can be praying for you as a church, or any questions you might have about the Christian faith, and you'd like to have a conversation, admittedly a virtual one, but if there is a conversation that you would like to have around anything that you've encountered or heard through either these meditations or on Sundays, then please do get in touch, and we would love to carry on that conversation with you. But take care, and we look forward to that time when we get to see each other in person again. Bye-bye.